Are we heading towards the dystopian future that the 80s once imagined? High tech and low life summed up all the characteristics of cyberpunk. The release of Blade Runner in 1982 and Neuromancer in '84 launched the genre into the mainstream. The 80s and 90s had their imaginations run wild, predicting a future that would be advanced, fast, and flashy. But its people were miserable living in a corrupted world run by mega corporations. In this marvelous video, we're going to count down the top 15 cyberpunk movies of the decades the genre was most popular in. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Videodrome, 1983. The sci-fi body horror directed by David Cronenberg anxiously conspired how television media will present in a dystopia. The story began with Max Wren, the president of a TV station in Canada, who was displeased with the number of underwhelming shows on his station. He made a deal with a pirate satellite operator to broadcast a show known as Videodrome, which portrayed people being maimed and tortured in an eerie orange chamber. Max believed the show was staged, and even thought gory body horror was the future of television. The horrific truth was soon uncovered. Not only was the torture real, but it was also subliminal political propaganda. The more the audience watched Videodrome, the further they were brainwashed. Watching the violent broadcast affected the viewers, who experienced terrifying hallucinations and developed cancerous brain tumors. The show was created with the intention of turning the citizens of the country into brain-dead watchers, obsessed with violence and sex. The 1983 film is a harsh commentary on audiences' growing obsession with excessive violence and graphic scenes that are irrelevant to the actual plot. Tatua, the Iron Man, 1989. The 1989 tokusatsu body horror directed by Shinya Tsukamoto is a morbid cybernetic tale of metal fetishes. The movie begins with a metal fetishist mutilating himself and allowing his wound to become severely infected. Meanwhile, a Japanese salaryman was haunted by nightmares of metal machinery, as he also noticed a metal spike poking out of his cheek while he shaved. In the subway, a strange woman spotted a pile of flesh, which she foolishly touched and turned into a horrific monster who was mind-controlled by the fetishist. The salaryman was chased by the monster, and after this encounter, he began his transformation into a metal man. To his girlfriend's horror, different parts of his body turned into metal. She attempted to kill this monstrosity, but he managed to revive himself by electrocution. The bizarre film ended with Iron Man and the metal fetishist morphing into one phallic rod of metal, with the plans of establishing a new world, a world that would be taken over by metal. This film presents the haunting side of cybernetic enhancements, wrapped up in a story that feels like a fever dream. RoboCop, 1987. The 1987 sci-fi action film directed by Paul Verhoeven is set in Detroit, which is overwhelmed by crime and corruption. The government was funded by a mega corporation named Omni Consumer Products, which privatized the police force as well. The corporation specialized in law enforcement droids. Meanwhile, our main character, a police officer known as Alex Murphy, was in pursuit of a dangerous gang. Murphy was captured by the gang leader and killed, since they were notorious for violently targeting police officers. Murphy's remaining insides and brains were turned into OCP Crime Prevention Unit 001, or RoboCop. The newly created RoboCop had no memory of his past life. He proved to be a highly efficient way of countering violent crimes in the city. However, one mission triggered his memories to trickle back slowly, but he could never avenge himself due to specific directives programmed into him that forced him to obey the law. RoboCop is a social satire that set the standard for dystopian cyberpunk movies at the time of its release. The Matrix, 1999. The 1999 sci-fi classic written and directed by the Wachowskis blurred the boundaries between humans and machines. Ever had a dream so vivid that you couldn't distinguish what was real and what wasn't? The film presented a future in which we lived reality was, in fact, the Matrix. Essentially, it is a virtual reality created by machines, an advance of artificial intelligence with the intention of oppressing the human race. The humans were kept subdued and used as an energy resource. The main character is a computer programmer named Neo, played by Keanu Reeves. He led a double life, working as a computer programmer during the day and hacker by night. According to the prophecy by the Oracle, Neo was the one who would free the rest of humanity from the Matrix's illusion. Trinity leads him into the terrifying programming underworld. where he meets Morpheus. Morpheus was considered to be one of the most dangerous men in the world, branded as a terrorist by the government. The uncovering of the truth was disturbing for Neo, who had a whole new world revealed to him. How would the story play out if he hadn't followed the White Rabbit? The Matrix is the poster child of cyberpunk, wherein technology not only met dystopia, but blurred the lines of reality itself. Tron, 1982. Yet another classic. The 1982 film, directed by Steven Lisberger, changed the trajectory of the sci-fi genre. The story followed computer engineer Kevin Flynn, who designed several video games for the megacorporation Incom's mainframe. Kevin realized that another programmer named Ed Dillinger had blatantly plagiarized his work. He attempted to hijack Ed's system to provide concrete proof of the theft, but got trapped in the digital world. A digitized Flynn was forced to take on the malevolent software known as the Master Control Program, which had extended its influence into the real world. But all hope wasn't lost as Flynn was aided by Tron, a security software that protected him from MCP. What made Tron such a unique movie? At the time it was released, the filmmakers went all out with the visual effects. The film was aimed at adolescents who love the arcade style of gaming. The neon, flashy digital dystopia is what made Tron so characteristically cyberpunk. It's a tale of finding human connection in a non-human world. Tron was way ahead of its time, from the themes of cyberspace to artificial intelligence. The 13th Floor, 1999. The 1999 sci-fi flick is considered to be a neo-noir film. The crime thriller followed the story of Hannon Fuller, the owner of a multi-billion-dollar megacorporation in Los Angeles. He developed a computerized venture that built a whole new VR simulation. Virtual reality was set in the year 1937, filled with artificial intelligence that didn't realize that they were simulated beings. Right before the public launch of his VR creation, Hannon Fuller was mysteriously murdered. Right away, his long-standing friend and the heir to his company, Douglas Hall, became the prime suspect. Escaping the relentless interrogation of the LAPD, Douglas jumped into Fuller's VR world to seek answers. Fuller's message claimed that Douglas was also an artificial being. In the real world, Douglas's entire concept of reality was blown away when he realized that the world they were currently living in was also a simulation. It was revealed that Hannon Fuller had created thousands of virtual realities. Some of them were so advanced that they had developed other realities within them. The 13th Floor is a trippy tale of layered realities. It's also a perfect example of when technology becomes far too advanced to remain in our control. Total Recall, 1990. The 1990 sci-fi thriller directed by Paul Verhoeven is a hard-hitting story of desiring escape. The year is 2084, and Douglas Quaid, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, is shown to be a construction worker on Earth. Quaid was constantly tormented by night terrors, in which he saw a mysterious woman on Mars. By this point, Mars was already colonized and under the control of its tyrannical governor, Vilas Cohagen. Quaid decided to visit Recall, a tech company that offered its customers vacations in the form of false memories, as an escape from their realities. Things went south during the implantation process, but the company discreetly wiped his memory of the incident. Similar to the previous movie, Quaid's reality was turned upside down as well. He believed he was a secret agent from Mars, and his marriage was also a false memory implant. Quaid's journey to the colonized planet holds some answers as he meets the mysterious woman from his dreams and realizes his true identity. Total Recall revolves around the correlation between memory and personal identity. It's also a bleak commentary on the lengths humans might go to in order to escape their dystopian realities in the foreseeable future. The Fifth Element, 1997. The sci-fi film, with its star-studded cast, was directed by Luc Besson. The Fifth Element was known as an iconic cult classic. In 1914, an alien race named the Mondoshaowans got in touch with their human contact, a priest in an ancient Egyptian temple. They took possession of a great weapon made up of the four elements: air, water, earth, and fire. The fifth element was contained in a stone sarcophagus, and it was believed that this weapon was capable of destroying an evil that showed up every 5,000 years. Sure enough, in 2263, the evil emerged as a giant fireball headed straight for Earth. The great weapon aboard a Mondoshaowan ship was overrun by alien pirates. Only a metal hand was procured from the wreckage, and this was developed into what originally resided in the stone sarcophagus. The result was a humanoid weapon named Lilo. One of the most memorable scenes of this film was when Lilo flashed her multipass to the others. Although Lilo was meant to be the protector of our planet, she lost all hope for humanity. The film explored the place love took in their corrupt fallen world. The Fifth Element is peak cyberpunk cinema, with a world built so beautifully that a part of you can't help but wish you lived in it. The Running Man, 1987. 1987's Running Man, directed by Paul Michael Glaser, is the ultimate dystopia. The year was 2017, and the world's economy collapsed. The government was an extremist police state and forced its people to live in an undignified way. The state constantly fed its people ultra-violent TV shows, one of them being a show named The Running Man, in which gangs of mercenaries termed as stalkers were set upon criminals known as runners in a chase till death. The winner was promised government pardons and vacations. The protagonist of the film is a police helicopter pilot named Captain Ben Richards, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was ordered to shoot down people in an ongoing food riot, but refused to. This led him to be arrested, after which he met a rebellious group in prison. Ben Richards caught the attention of the Running Man's creator, who forced him to participate in his sadistic show. What ensued was a bloody battle between the stalkers and the runners. Ben Richards stumbled upon the bodies of the past winners of the show, proving the whole thing was an elaborate ruse. The film, based on Stephen King's novel of the same name, commented on growing media's manipulation and social control. Cyborg, 1989. The 1989 cult classic directed by Albert Pugh is a story of humanity as it was being eaten away by a deadly plague. A small group of surviving CDC scientists tirelessly worked on a cure, but there was a missing piece of information they desperately needed. This information was stored on a computer in New York, but the journey to retrieve it would be a perilous one. A brave Pearl prophet volunteered, after which she was turned into a cyborg through cybernetic enhancements. Pearl, along with her bodyguard Marshall Stratt, set off for New York but soon ran into expected trouble. They were stopped by pirate captain Fender Tremolo, who wished to gain a monopoly over the cure for his own benefit. Pearl's bodyguard was left incapacitated, and she was ordered to find a slinger who would accompany her for the rest of the journey. Pearl encountered a jaded slinger named Gibson Rickenbacker, who confronted the pirates who outnumbered him. Rickenbacker began religiously hunting the pirate gang and a captive Pearl, as he vowed to kill the criminals. It was revealed that Gibson's lover was killed by the pirate captain, snatching away his chance of a normal life in a disease-ridden world. Cyborg is a post-apocalyptic struggle that began with our civilization collapsing, creating an anarchic world strangled by the plague. Judge Dredd, 1995. The 1995 sci-fi action flick directed by Danny Cannon is based on the British 2000 AD comics of the same name. The story began by telling us that by the 2080s, most of the Earth had turned into an inhabitable wasteland. People only lived in concentrated megapolises, cities the size of states with 10 and 20 million people living in them. Instead of a judicial system, groups of judges ruled, who played the roles of judge, jury, police, and hangman all in one. In one of these post-apocalyptic megapolises named Megacity 1, Judge Joseph Dredd, played by Sylvester Stallone, reigned. We see Judge Dredd go about his duties, which include overseeing a block war among rival gangs. A former judge named Rico had escaped prison and sought to find his gun named the Lawgiver, only to see it taken into possession by a robotic ABC warrior. The film also portrayed the thrilling endeavors of Judge Dredd being accused of murder and confronted by cannibalistic bandits of the wastelands, till it is revealed that Judge Dredd was one of the beings who were genetically engineered in an attempt to create the perfect judge. The film portrayed the kind of dystopia in which societies are tortured by totalitarian governments that snatch away the autonomy of their people. Demolition Man, 1993. The 1993 sci-fi action flick directed by Marco Brambilla was his directorial debut. The story began in the year 1996, with crazed criminal Simon Phoenix kidnapping a group of hostages and taking them to a decrepit building. An LAPD sergeant, John Spartan, played by Sylvester Stallone, was known as the Demolition Man. This was due to his tendency to demolish structures in his pursuit of delinquents. However, this time he was tricked. Simon Phoenix planned for the building to be obliterated with the hostages still in it and blamed it on the Demolition Man. John Spartan was suspended and arrested alongside the criminal. The two were put in a new prison known as the California Cryo Penitentiary, which put its inmates into cryo sleep and subjected them to subconscious rehab. In 2032, San Diego, Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara merged into one giant megapolis known as San Angeles. Simon Phoenix awoke from his cryosleep and continued his bloody rampage in a world that had long forgotten violent crime. Spartan was also awakened as he had the expertise to deal with Simon. The world of San Angeles was an oppressive one with human vices such as alcohol, drugs, sex sports, swearing, and eating meat, punishable by the offense.
You better get it up. I'm gonna have to kill you.
Blade Runner, 1982. Based on the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, Blade Runner set the course for cyberpunk sci-fi. Ridley Scott's genius struck yet again, with this film portraying the story of a dystopian Earth of the early 21st century. The Tyrell Corporation had developed robots eerily similar to humans, known as replicants, as a way to help human society advance further. Predictably so, the Nexus 6 generation of replicants turned hostile and launched a mutiny on Earth, which resulted in them being criminalized on our planet. Forces known as Blade Runners were employed to hunt down these humanoid robots that had infiltrated society. In the year 2019, Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, was once an exemplary Blade Runner. He was requested from retirement to hunt down 4 dangerous models of replicants led by Roy Batty. Blade Runners would decipher whether a suspect is a replicant through the Voight-Kampff test, which would identify humans based on their emotional reactions. Blade Runner has been considered to be one of the greatest cyberpunk movies made, by inspiring countless shows, video games, and anime after its creation. Many agree that Blade Runner 82 is the origin of cyberpunk, with the characters struggling to differentiate between humans and technologically engineered humans. Dark City, 1998, a bleak, futuristic neo-noir drama directed by Alex Proyas. It is a sorrowful story surrounding existentialism. The story begins with an amnesiac, John Murdoch, who is being hunted by a clandestine group known as the Strangers. He stumbled upon a horrifically mutilated corpse of a woman, which led him to be falsely linked to a set of murders. Murdoch realized he possessed psychokinetic powers, and the city he roamed in left all its inhabitants in a comatose state at night. This was when the group of strangers paused time and reposition people and places in the city, consistently shuffling their identities. How did Murdoch come to be the anomaly that he was? The horrific truth was that the Strangers were actually a gang of alien parasites that used human bodies as hosts. They conducted their nightly experiments as a test of human individuality. Murdoch just happened to wake up in the middle of this experiment. He went on to hone his psychokinesis till he was able to defeat the Strangers. Dark City is the perfect example of how higher scientific and societal advancements for the human race also mean undue attention from malicious extraterrestrial beings. The film did a brilliant job of layering the neo-noir setting with an electronic society of the new age. Hardware, 1990. The 1990 flick directed by Richard Stanley is a story of how beauty killed the bolts. The film begins with a nomadic scavenger digging up the remains of a mysterious robot in a desert amidst radioactive wastelands. The scavenger sold the bot to Alvy's junkyard, where it was spotted by Hardmo Baxter, who decided to buy the robot for his girlfriend Jill. Alvy found out the robot's model was named Mark 13, a weapon of destruction made by the government to curb overpopulation where they lived. Jill was an artist and turned her attention to her new gift as she began skillfully painting its head. The robot had slowly reassembled itself and instantly launched into killing mode, even after being nearly saved by others. Jill took matters into her own hands and put an end to the nuisance herself. Set among bleak wastelands with the government plotting inhumane ways to control their population numbers, Hardware is genuinely a dystopian, gory horror film. Marvelous verdict. Here we come to the end of our list of the top 15 cyberpunk movies of the 80s and 90s. Why should I watch any of these? It's fascinating to see the past predicted accurately of the future, and what other nightmares might become a reality as we steadily advance into an age dominated by cyberspace. Is this what we're fated for? An incredibly advanced but artificial society contrasted by dystopia and decay? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks everyone.